I'd like to call this meeting to order. Adoption of agendas, Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, the council adopt the, second by Councillor Kenny, that the council adopt the agenda as published on October 10, 2019, and any and all revisions published October 15th, 2019.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Mayor's report. This is a long one. Thursday, October the 4th, I attended the homeless information session with guest speaker Ian DeJong at Club Roma with Councillor Neal. Very interesting perspective on how we deal with homelessness and different ways moving forward that he says are more efficient and work in a lot of areas that he's doing work with. So there'll be more from the region on that moving forward. Saturday, October the 5th, Councillor Neal and I attended a ribbon cutting and grand opening ceremony for Marydale Homes, Artisan Ridge Phase 2. On October the 5th, I attended Apple Fest celebration and Apple Pie Social at the Friends of Beaver Dams Church. They revealed the latest phase of the building siding makeover, and if you haven't seen it, please drive by. It looks like a brand new building, and the inside will be their next phase will be doing work on the interior. Councillor Neal and Sentence were also in attendance. To recognize Mental Illness Awareness Week on October the 5th, Councillor DeRose and I attended Be the One to Give the Boot to PST Gala event at Club Castro Pignano. The event was established to help raise funds and bring awareness of our first responders suffering from PTSD. Chief Terry Dixon was in attendance as well. Special thanks to organizer Dan Giancola and his amazing group of volunteers, and that evening they raised $35,000. It was a great event. On October 9th, they attended the 100th anniversary for Community Care of St. Catherine's and Thorold Open House. On behalf of the City of Thorold, I would like to thank Community Care for their selfless dedication to continue to improve vital services and assistance and help those struggling to meet their basic needs to continue to self-sufficiency. Rolling Meadows, Niagara presents the 18th annual Canal Bank Shuffle Blues Festival. The Canal Bank Shuffle will bring exceptional talent of blues musicians from around the world starting this Thursday, October 17th through Sunday, October 20th at venues throughout Holy Rosary Church and Hall and downtown venues. We have the Canadian Corps upstairs and downstairs, the Legion upstairs and downstairs, Donnelly's, Biscotti Cafe, Karma Chameleon, to name a few. So it'll be a great weekend and the city will be abuzz. And we actually had a visitor fly in from Ireland that's going to be attending the festival this coming weekend. Tickets are $25 in advance for weekend access to all shows. On behalf of council and the community, I wish to thank festival organizers and acknowledge their continued dedication and hard work in making the festival a yearly success. Downtown Thorold will be hosting the 3rd annual Canine and Costume Contest and Puppy Promenade on Saturday, October the 19th, 2019, with a rain date of Saturday, October 26th. Pre-registration is online at www.thoroldbia.com/events. Check-in is between 11 and 11:30 at the Yellow Flower Basket at 50 Front Street North, Thorold. There are 5 costume categories available to win. United Way kickoff will start Thursday, October 31st with the flag raising at 12 p.m. in front of City Hall, and there will be a potluck lunch that day as well. Am I right, Donna? So everybody's welcome to attend that. That'll be done right here at in the council chambers. Dog owners, please be advised 2020 dog licenses will be available for purchase as of November 1st online at www.thorold.ca. Just a reminder that November 3rd is daylight savings and to move your clocks back 1 hour. Our next council meeting will take place November 5th. And then a couple of other items. On Thursday, October 10th, Manoj Dawaria, Jeff Holman, Chief Dixon, and myself met with representatives from CN Rail at their Port Robinson yard. Daniel Salvatore, Manager of Public Affairs, Province of Ontario, their train master and local superintendent were present on behalf of CN. We raised the concerns and frustrations of local residents that they are experiencing and possible solutions moving forward. This dialogue will be ongoing as we work to improve and resolve the issues our residents are experiencing. The city website soon will include the link they give us to the CN Public Inquiry Line. Phone number, which will be on the website, is 1-888-888-5909 or email contact@cn.ca, where residents can report any concerns and a CN representative will follow up with the appropriate personnel regarding your concerns. So we hope to have that link on our city website very shortly. Tomorrow, council will receive a copy of a press release that'll be going out Thursday and the document that the City of Thorold, City of Welland, Port Colborne, Town of Pelham, and Township of Waynfleet will be signing subject to ratification of all councils. It's an MOU, and we currently have one with the City of Welland where we work on expanding issues related to purchasing of goods and services. We have been mandated by the provincial government to find efficiencies, partnerships, etc., and earlier this year received a one-time payment of approximately $720,000 to pursue such things. So that will be, you'll be getting an email, and then that will be coming to council for ratification at our next meeting and discussion. One other item, the Flying Fathers versus the Thorold Mounts fundraiser game at the Thorold Arena on Wednesday, November 20th at 7 p.m. Tickets are $10 each and are now on sale, and they can be purchased at the Thorold Arena, Front Row Sports, from John Kenny, Tony Scalzi, or any member of the Knights of Columbus. And that should be a great night. If it's anything like the one they held back in the old days, the arena was packed. So we hope to have that same type of engagement this time around. And that's the end of my mayor's report. Adoption of the minutes. Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sentence, that the regular council and general committee meetings of October 1st, 2019 be hereby adopted.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we move on to a public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act. Proposed amendment to the City of Thorold Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2140-97 to rezone lands on the north side of Richmond Street by amending site-specific provisions to facilitate a 35-unit townhouse development, D14-10-2019. Opening remarks and purpose of meeting and intent of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. The public meeting is being held pursuant to the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended. The purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment is to repeal bylaw 34-2018 and replace the existing site-specific provisions with new site-specific provisions to facilitate site plan review of a previously approved townhouse development. A sign-in sheet is located at the back if you wish to receive a copy of the decision of City Council. At the same table, copies of the staff report are available for your information. And now, a presentation from City staff. I'd like to call to the podium Paul Klassen, Intermediate.
Good evening. I've got a brief presentation here for council and the public regarding a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for a condominium townhouse development on Richmond Street. So staff received an application to rezone the subject lands to facilitate the aforementioned 35-unit townhouse development. which would utilize private roadways. So council approved the rezoning application for the same development in April of 2018. And then the applicants subsequently applied for their site plan approval. And through that process, zoning compliance issues were identified by staff. The compliance issues are technical in nature and pertain to how provisions for minimum lot areas, landscape areas, and building setbacks are applied within a private street development. Staff has worked with the applicant on a new site-specific amendment to replace the existing one and repeal the existing bylaw. The new proposed bylaw would allow the site plan approval process to proceed and for the applicant to subsequently obtain their building permits. The development is proposed in the area noted as Part 1 on the image on the screen, whereas Part 2 contains a wooded area that won't be developed as part of the application. The property is located on the north side of Richmond Street between Silver Maple Road and Winterberry Boulevard. And now on the screen is the proposed site plan, which remains the same concept that was approved in 2018 by council. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I'm available.
Are there any questions for the presenter, for Paul? Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two quick questions for Paul. Paul, the same number of units being proposed?
Through the mayor, that's correct.
Okay, and my second question is, Part 2 in the drawing, without any units, that was going to be conveyed to the city. Is that still happening?
I believe it is, yes.
You believe it is, or it is?
Are you able?
I'll ask Denise, Manager of Planning, to please answer that.
Through the mayor, the intent is to take that parcel through future subdivision applications.
Does that answer your question?
No, not really, because last time when it was approved, it was going to be conveyed to the city as part of the agreement of rezoning it, so I just want to make sure that stays the same. That was part of the discussion last term of council. And I'm not sure how we do that, but I want to make sure it stays the same.
Is there any further response, Denise?
Through the mayor, the intention is to take that parcel of land and to ensure it's not developed as it's a protected woodlot.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Paul, for the presentation. And I'll move on to public participation, public input. If a person or public body chooses to not provide oral comments at the public meeting or written comments before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is adopted, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. At this time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward to the podium. Please state your name.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is William Heikup. I'm a planner with Upper Canada Consultants, representing the owners for tonight's public meeting. Don't have a ton to say. It's the same plan, same building, same road location. And yes, that environmental land will be dedicated to the city through the site plan application, that it is currently zoned as environmental lands. Beyond that, it's really a technical amendment for differences of opinion and implementing the plan. So really, you're not seeing any changes other than the wording of the bylaw. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Do we have any questions here? Seeing none, Mr. Heikup, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else at this time who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward to the podium. And last time, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Please come forward to the podium. Seeing none, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition of the application? Please come forward to the podium. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition of the application? Please come forward to the podium and please state your name.
Peter DePaula?
And your,
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'd like to speak.
yeah,
Number one.
and your address, sir.
79 Honey Locust. And can I ask questions or can I just speak?
Just speaking. This is a presentation.
Just speak, okay, great. I guess there's a concern. Mr. Heikoop said earlier that it's technical in nature. I'm not really sure what that means. So if everything is the same, he says everything is the same, why do we even need the rezoning? Something's obviously changed. So I would say that there may be a different intent to this. And as we all are aware of what's happening in West Confederation, you had similar presentations probably a month ago by other concerned citizens. I would encourage this council to dig deep and not be afraid to represent every single taxpayer in the city, including those that may not show up here tonight because they have other things to do as well. But certainly as a voice for many residents on my street, what I can tell you is that we would encourage council to dig deep, the city staff to dig deep, and what is the purpose of really this application? There's significant concern in the community that there is there's a large propensity, to do different types of housing for different types of reasons. And I don't think these two individuals, or whoever owns the land, and you know what, there's not a big secret. We know who kind of owns the land. We need to understand they're good people, but why all of a sudden is there a change? And I think that you people as on here have a responsibility to understand really what the motives are. And maybe they're honorable, I don't know. But we leave it in your hands to make sure that you represent everybody. And I would ask that you do a thorough job and analysis on this. The only other comment I have is why this letter here that I received in the mail doesn't go to everybody on my street. I don't understand it. My neighbor didn't get it, and he's right next to me. 2 doors down didn't get it, and they're right. Like, I don't understand. Is it a measurement that it just ends at my house and I have to be lucky, or?
I'll let the manager of planning respond to that.
Through the mayor, under the Planning Act, there's a certain radius for us to send notice. That radius is 120 meters around the subject parcel. So sometimes exactly what the speaker spoke to, that one person will get it and the person beside them won't, as we use the 120 meter radius to circulate.
Would they also receive it if they were at the previous meeting and signed the list?
Through the mayor, because it's a new application, they would not receive this.
Okay, thank you.
So that's something else that's a little bit concerning, right? I mean, 50 feet, I guess, it's a really black and white issue. I guess 120 meters. I don't know, guys. I would just ask you that perhaps there's something that council could say, hey, look, if the neighborhood, and I don't know how you define the neighborhood, and maybe you need to draw a line somewhere in the sand, I guess, I don't know, but it just seems that when there's other people that are directly impacted by things that are happening, and is there not an onus or a responsibility for council, the city, to really sort of take a common sense approach and say, hey, while 120 meters is the rule, the Planning Act, the neighborhood is the neighborhood. I don't know. Put yourselves. I mean, if you were that neighbor, how would you feel? I guess is that. And we have an old rule, and it goes just common sense. Treat others as you would want to be treated. Be fair to everybody, and that's all I guess I'm asking of this council, is to represent everybody. And I'm asking you guys, and I'm looking at each and every one of you to dig deep as to what is happening and why it's happening. And these issues are all interconnected and interrelated to all the previous housing issues that are going on. I'm not saying that we can't coexist and be. And the one thing I would want to mention, as I drove here tonight and I'm driving down Schmon Parkway, you see these residences that are built by an outside firm, I think, who owns these buildings over here. And you start to see how they've contained their recycling. They have these big recycling bins. They have they know that there's lots of people living there, and they've kind of created an environment to succeed. And when we have these applicants now changing zoning twice, 3 times, you have to ask yourself, why should the city continue to evolve and change all these things? What's changed? Is it a market thing? Maybe it is. But I would ask the city to dig deep and find out why. And then we know that there's going to be an opportunity to have students live in there. I'm going to say it. There's going to be an opportunity. And is there something that you can do to self-contain issues like the residences here on Schmon Parkway have displayed, that their lots are clean, their properties are clean, and is there an opportunity to think about that and put that on the development if you should grant the rezoning? So I encourage you to have the courage to ask a lot of questions. That's all I'm saying, gentlemen and ladies, of course. Thank you.
Questions for Peter? Thank you very much.
And is that where I signed?
Yes.
Is that the piece of paper I signed to? Thank you.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward to the podium. And one last time, is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward to the podium. Seeing none, closing remarks and closing of the meeting. This fulfills the requirements of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, pursuant to Section 34. The city's general committee will consider the staff's recommendation report, which will subsequently be considered by City Council at a future date. Anyone wishing to receive a copy of City Council's decision as a result of this application is asked to submit their request in writing to the city clerk. As such, the public meeting portion of this application is now closed. These? Okay. And we move forward. There's no civic recognition, presentations, motions of support, statement by councilors. We're on to notices of motion. Councilor Neal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Because the province of Ontario's new initiative about adding a second unit to an existing house, I have a notice of motion for the next meeting, that the manager of planning be directed to prepare a report for the November 5th meeting about the province of Ontario's new initiative about adding a second unit to an existing house.
In that, you'll work to bring that next meeting, correct? Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, we're going to resolve into general committee. And I'll call to order any declarations of interest under general committee meeting agenda. There's no delegations. Consent reports. Call for reports to be brought forward from consent. Is there any reports that someone wants to bring forward? Seeing none, can I have a motion to remove the reports of consent? Councillor Hanley.
So move the report, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We'll move into discussion reports. CAO Report 2019-05, Budget Overrun, Acrobat Adobe Pro Software for Human Resources. Manoj Delwaria. Yeah. That's it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that a general budget overrun of $435.81 plus HST be approved by council for the purchase of the required software license, Acrobat Adobe Professional. Thank you.
Can I get a mover for the report? Councillor Sentence. Speakers to the report. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. PWCS 2019-69, Ann Street parking restriction, and I'll turn this over to the Director of Public Works and Community Services, Jeff Holman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The recommendations are that, one, that on-street parking be permitted on the north side of Ann Street only, from White Avenue to Queen Street as outlined in this report. Number two, that the City of Thorold's traffic bylaw, number 150-2012, be amended to reflect the necessary changes. And three, that staff be directed to include the reconstruction widening of Ann Street in the 10-year capital forecast.
Okay, move it for the report? Councillor Wilson, speakers to the report. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. PWCS 2019-70 Sidewalk Replacement Program revised, and again, I'll turn this over to Jeff Holman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is, one, that the 2019 sidewalk replacement program be expanded to include additional costs up to the approved budget amount of $200,000. Number two, that council provide direction regarding the inclusion of a sidewalk through Memorial Park to the Cenotaph as requested by the Thorold Senior Citizens Association. And three, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the required contract as amended.
Can I get a mover for the report? I got Councillor Hanley. Speakers to the report. Speakers to the report. I've got Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious, through you to the appropriate staff member, why this petition from the Thorold Senior Center wasn't sent to our Joint Accessibility Committee for review and comment.
And I'll turn that over to City Clerk Donna Delvecchio.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, our consultant has been engaged in this from the very beginning.
Okay.
Any other speakers? Councillor Neal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The report, or the letter from the LACAC Heritage Committee states that this is a designated park. And being a designated park, it's not taken lightly that we change or put other things in the park without doing some discussion around it. I'm just stating that underneath the Ontario Heritage Act, this is a designated piece of ground. And if you read the report from the LACAC, they're stating that they don't want that to happen. So I'm just putting that out.
If I can elaborate on that, I've talked to both parties. I'd like to hold a meeting with the head of LACAC and the head of the Senior Center and appropriate staff and see if we can sit down and come to a proposal that we could bring back to council. And then if we can't come to a resolution, then council can decide what.
Can I add something to it?
Yeah.
If you come in from Albert Street.
Yes.
And you take a wheelchair and you go up, there are 2 steps. So it's non-accessible at the present moment. So let's take a look at that too, so that we can make it accessible.
And as part of my initial conversations with the groups, I think that could be a solution. So it's something we'll entertain in the discussion. Is everybody good with that? But that's only part 2, right?
That's right.
So that's relating to part 2. So if someone, do you want to make the motion that
We defer part 2.
part 2, and I'll, hey? Not the first, that I meet with the parties and appropriate staff.
Refer back to the mayor for further dialogue.
And appropriate staff, and we'll report back. What about the other 2 parts?
Number 3 will go.
Number 3 struck, so we only have part 1. Can you read that, please?
Is that the only increase is for the
Mr. Mayor.
only increase in pool 1, so it's only 1 recommendation.
So we're only going to look at the 1 recommendation. Can you read that recommendation? Is it, it's part of the report? I just, because
Yeah, don't
the
do
other
that.
part we're going to bring back.
Jeff can speak because there are some other parts that we.
Okay, I'll turn this back over to the Director of Public Works and Community Services on how you want to proceed. Do you want to bring the whole report back, or would you rather get that 1 part moved forward?
Mr. Mayor, there are three recommendations. So the first one is that we use the full amount of the approved budget. The contract that was tendered, the award was about $160,000, so we have a little bit of room there. And so that would cover recommendations 1 and 3. For recommendation 2, because we're kind of running out of time, if we wanted to have something in place by
Remembrance.
Remembrance Day, we'd have to move fairly quickly, and I'm not sure we'd be able to get a report back to council. If it was council's direction to see if we can work out some kind of solution and stay within the budget, then this could be our priority project that we would use that extra money on.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to that, did we not discuss one time that what we were going to do was just to put a couple of swales around the outside of the 2 stairs so that it could make it handicap accessible? We discussed this last term of council, I believe.
I think we did discuss that, but we never did come to a resolution. That's the kind of discussion I want to have when I meet both parties.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So you basically, we're going to be time sensitive on getting that done. We may not get it done. I don't.
Mr. Mayor, we may be able to deal with the ramp issue, to remove the step or provide some ramp there, and then work with LACAC to try and find another appropriate alignment that would satisfy both parties. But you're right, we're running out of time. We basically have about 2 weeks.
I know. So if we move forward on the approved monies and then allot it as necessary, is that fine with council? Go ahead, Councillor Hen.
Can I add one thing? If we approve the $200,000 budget overrun, if you come to a conclusion, would you not even need council's consent if the expenditure is below $20,000, that the project could move ahead, forward it through the Public Works Department? You wouldn't have to come back to council. I don't think it would be over $20,000, and I believe over $20,000 we'd have to put out a RFP, request for proposals. Could we do it in that end, so that I'm looking at, we're going to approve the $200,000 right now. If a resolution comes to be had between the senior center and LACAC, that we as a council approve for the project to proceed as long as it doesn't have an overrun of $20,000. And I do believe that under a procurement policy, if it exceeds $20,000, then we would have to put out an RFP. But he can do it on his own under $20,000. Would I be right or wrong?
That's correct. Although, Mr. Mayor, we have tendered this work. It would be extension of the unit prices of the contract.
So it's already been tendered.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we good with that?
Yes.
Okay? You've got that language down?
We can
Okay,
basically approve it.
yeah.
We're doing it.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. We'll move on to PDS 2019-33, Parking Enforcement Officer Pilot Project, and PDS, so that's, who's oh, Jason, sorry, Chief Building Official, Jason Simpson, you're up.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendations are that council approve hiring a parking enforcement officer on a temporary, part-time contract, working up to 21 hours per week until May 1st of 2020 to facilitate a parking enforcement pilot project. That council approve a budget overrun of $2,200 to the Bylaw Division 2019 operating budget to facilitate the hiring of a parking enforcement officer. Number 3, that council approve a budget overrun of $6,000 to the Bylaw Division 2019's capital budget to facilitate the purchasing of uniforms, computer hardware, and additional software licenses for the parking enforcement officer. And recommendation 4, that council pre-approve an increase in the Bylaw Enforcement Division's 2020 operating budget of $9,800 to facilitate the execution of the parking enforcement pilot project until May 1st of 2020.
Can I get a mover for that report, Councillor Hanley? Speakers to the report.
Can I also speak on it? Could I ask you, Mr. Mayor, to Jason, are we looking at someone that's going to be basically in our downtown business district area or citywide?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the individual would be doing parking enforcement throughout the entire city, but definitely downtown would be a large part of that.
Go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Jason. Jason, is there a vehicle requirement for this job?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, being a temporary position, we don't have any intentions of purchasing another vehicle for this person. Should council in the future decide that this position warrants becoming full-time, then we may look at purchasing a vehicle at that time. But in the meantime, we would make things work.
And this is strictly a parking enforcement officer? No other bylaw duties?
That is correct.
Okay. And will you be providing a report to us in the future to show the expenses versus revenue of this individual?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is my intent to provide another report coming up to the end of the project with all the stats on expenses, revenues, and any other information council may desire.
Okay, thanks very much.
And okay, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Jason. I'm just curious, how would you make that work if the individual didn't have a car and they were going citywide? How would they travel?
Right now, my thoughts are, since it's a brand new position and we haven't advertised yet, we would probably make it a requirement of the job for them to use their personal vehicle.
And then how does that affect us from a liability standpoint and insurance for their car?
We currently have a number of employees that use personal vehicles for work purposes. So I expect, without looking into the insurance specifically, it would fall under the same coverage.
I'm sure, though, when they do the downtown area, they can do that on foot. They wouldn't need a vehicle. Am I correct? Do you have any further questions, Councillor Wilson?
I guess I'm just curious. I'm not sure how many bylaw officers you have right now, but how much time, could you tell us how many you have and how much time individually they spend on parking enforcement?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we currently have 4 bylaw officers on staff. Due to their shift schedules, we have up to 3 on the road at any one time. I don't have any statistics on how much time they spend doing parking enforcement strictly. We try to dedicate one person to doing parking enforcement every day, but unfortunately, due to the large increase in other bylaw enforcement calls, parking enforcement has fallen to the wayside a little bit. I don't have any actual hard numbers for you.
And if you look at a lot of municipalities in Niagara, they do parking separate from bylaw enforcement. If you look at a lot of municipalities, the parking enforcement people don't do regular bylaw enforcement. And we're one of the few where we do both.
So I'm just curious if the avenue was considered of doing a pilot project with one of our current employees on a part-time basis. So they take 21 hours of their week and they dedicate that strictly to parking enforcement. That way we have some data to work with. Otherwise, we're spending money on uniforms and $6,000 on uniforms and software updates for this individual. We're not even sure if it would be effective or not. Could we not just dedicate a person we have? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we currently, the bylaw officers currently work on a schedule where they are, in fact, somebody is scheduled to do parking enforcement all day, every day, or 5 days a week at least. However, because of the huge backlog in complaint files that we have, those have to take priority. Because due to our complaint protocol, we only have a certain amount of time to be able to respond to complaints. And in order to be able to maintain or achieve those timeframes, there's a lot of times where the parking officer can only follow up on their bylaw complaints that they were doing the week prior or 2 weeks prior. And even at that point, we're finding it difficult to even keep up. In addition to, there's been a very large number of residential rental licenses that have been coming in comparison to the previous year, which also has been taking up a lot of time as well.
I'm gonna get the CAO to expand on that 6,000, because it's not just for uniforms. It's most of it's software. It's the software that's the expense.
Yeah, I think about more than 5,000 is computers, software, handheld for them, and about $500-600 for the uniform. So that's the split. This temporary position or the pilot project is going to help our existing bylaw officers. They will continue to focus on residential licensing, clean yards, and other stuff. They will also continue with the parking, but this is an add-on. And we have seen there are streets, we get a lot of complaints. And the thing is, when we talk about 21 hours, depending on, it doesn't mean they have to be during the weekday. If there is a requirement on a weekend, let's say on Sunday, on a particular street, which we know that the people are not adhering to the parking, they can go there. So when you look at the dollar amounts here, these are the dollar amounts that we are earmarked that is going to be spent. There is, because it's a pilot project, and we know that we, through proper enforcement, we can generate quite a bit of revenue. So at the end of the pilot project, or maybe in the interim as well, we can keep council abreast of how much revenue we are generating. The intent is to, of course, if somebody is defaulting, to penalize them, but we cannot hire a position purely based on revenue, because if the enforcement is good, the revenue will go down. So it's not that we are doing it just to generate revenue. So it's somewhat to start with. When we have it downtown, we getting a lot of complaints. We are also getting complaints on other streets, on DQ and others, on the weekend as well. So this 21 hours pilot project, we can able to utilize that. And depending on the success, we may come back later on just to see whether it is going to be converted into more of a permanent position. But that's how it is being started. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, so I understand that. I didn't think all of it was uniform. I did say the software licensing as well. But if this individual is going to take away the parking enforcement so that other bylaw officer can then focus on the backlog, why not just give them the handheld device? Like, why are we spending $5,000 on that when the other person, it was just said, most likely won't be doing enforcement at that time? Or if this individual is on the weekend, then all those handheld devices are available. I think we just have to be a little bit smarter about, and I mean that with all due respect, like, it's a pilot project, we don't know what's gonna happen, so let's use what we have. Okay, they'll need a uniform, but I just don't see buying another handheld device when we have things available.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the intent is that the other bylaw officers, they will continue with enforcement, parking enforcement as well. So this is an add-on. So it's not that when this person is there, we are going to take that responsibility away from them. It is just to supplement. This position is, when you talk about the bylaw officers, it's a more senior position in the organization. And this one, which is a different level, is most cost-effective way. As Mayor has pointed out previously, that there are a number of municipalities, they have parking commissioners just to take care of parking. Our trend has been that we have bylaw officers, which are higher paying jobs, do parking and other bylaw functions as well. So depending on the success of this project, we might try to have a separate team for parking, and then we'll have bylaw officers just focusing on the other elements of the city. Thank you.
Excuse me, I can support this if we do get a full report back, like it says on May 1st. One of your comments, I beg to differ. I think this is completely cost-driven. If it's not paying for itself, we have to get rid of it, because obviously if it's not paying for itself, we don't need the guy or person giving out tickets. So if they're giving out tickets and the system is working, then I believe we should move forward with it after that. And if not, if people are following the rules as they should, then we really don't need the person. My second point, are these cars that these people drive, are they taken home on the weekend, or are they left somewhere?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the city-owned vehicles stay at City Hall, and they only use their personal vehicles to drive to and from home.
So they would be available to this person on the weekend if they worked?
That is correct.
And the devices that they use?
Through Mr. Mayor, the devices, currently we don't have any devices, but that is the intent. The council had approved in the previous budget to get the devices. The intention is for every officer to have a device so that they can issue tickets while they're out there. But definitely, when we have reduced numbers on the weekends, there would be extra devices available.
Okay.
I support it because I'm an initiative, and I've always said about a commissioner. I've always said we need one person specifically in the city for parking, and I've always stated why. Because every municipality in the Niagara region has a commissioner to do parking because they pay for themselves. The city of St. Catharines makes a couple $1 million a year off of parking from them. Designated parking commissioners, and I'm for this project because I've been an advocate and trying for some time, some years, saying, why is it we don't have a person that specifically is out there for parking? We used to call Rita the meter maid, remember? Miss Labatt, I'm telling you, we made money. People didn't like it, and they eliminated it because of public complaints and that stuff, because the people didn't like getting ticketed for actually breaking the laws. That's why they get rid of them. And it's the truth. But she's done a good job in the city, and we need to get it back to that way. And I'm fully for it. It's a job that can pay for itself and create revenue for the city of Thorold. We just got to give them a chance. I believe it can work. And it's a chance, and I appreciate, the other councilors not concerns, and I had those concerns in the past too. But I've always stated, other municipalities wouldn't have a designated parking commissioner if they weren't paying for themselves.
Just a quick question through you, Mr. Mayor. We don't have any devices right now? Jason, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
So they're just handwritten notices? Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
PDS 2019-35, additional building inspector, again, chief building official, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendations to council are that council approve the hiring of an additional building inspector, that council approve a budget overrun of $18,000 for the remainder of the 2019 fiscal year, and that council pre-approve an increase of $100,000 to the building division 2020 budget.
Can I get a mover for the report? I got Councillor Longo. Speakers to the report, Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is this building inspector to deal specifically with trying to get our licensing initiative up and running properly, you might say, in order?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the building inspectors don't have any part in the residential rental licensing program. That is strictly by law. This additional building inspector is to assist current staffing with trying to keep up with the development that is occurring within the city. Currently, we are not meeting provincially legislated timeframes due to the large workload, plus the Canada Summer Games facility that is coming up will put a large amount of work onto the department as well. So this extra body is to assist with all that extra workload.
And one thing that the council should note is this does not affect the levy, okay? Building permits, the department is paid through the permits. And another point of interest has come out of our regional meeting is our head of planning there says this is the new norm. He says, what you're seeing now on the building permit side and what you're seeing in your municipalities is the new norm. It's not a blip. So to make sure that we're mandated to meet the provincial regulations, we need to be able to expedite these permits. And that's a 10-day turnaround, and we're not meeting that time frame right now.
I only asked if it was in regards to the licensing
No,
because,
that's under bylaw.
okay, heads up, I'm bringing it up at the next meeting.
Anyways, go ahead, Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Jason. Jason, can you find somebody to do this job?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is to be determined. It is true that there is a shortage of building officials, qualified building officials out there. So we've got our fingers crossed. They're definitely out there. It's just a matter of whether or not they apply. And it's hard to say without trying.
Okay, good luck.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. CC 2019-59, Investing in Canada Infrastructure, Community Culture and Recreation Stream, and I'll turn this over to our city clerk. Oh, I'll turn this over to our deputy city clerk, Joanne.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation of the report is that staff submit a grant application under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure, Community Culture and Recreation Stream for consideration of the rehabilitation of the Battle Beaver Dams Park.
Can I get a mover for the report? I got Councillor Decker. Speakers to the report. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. CC 2019-62, Heritage Thorold LACAC request for additional members. And I'll turn this over to City Clerk Donna Delvecchia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that the request from the Heritage Thorold LACAC to increase their membership from 7 members to 9 members be hereby granted, and that the city clerk be directed to advertise for the 2 new members requested with the results which will come forward to the November 5th meeting. That concludes the report.
Can I get a mover for the report? I've got Councillor Sentence. Speakers to the report. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now I'll move to, we'll go back into council committee and board meeting minutes before we go on.
Mayor, sorry, could I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Under consent reports, we kind of went through that really quick, and I'll probably make the clerk pull her hair out when I ask this question. Is there any way we can go back? I just have a couple questions on the one people spoke about. I didn't realize it was in consent reports, and we've passed and blown through there. PDS 2019-36. I think we owe it to the people that showed up here asking that we dig deep and ask questions. Is there a way that we can reconsider that, just go back to it, have a quick discussion?
Okay, well, we can move back to it. So under consent reports, C, PDS 2019-36, and then I'll turn that over to our manager of planning, Denise. Recommendation report for zoning bylaw amendment for lands on the north side of Richmond.
Bear with me, just opening the report.
Yeah.
Through the mayor, the recommendations of the report are that Planning and Development Services Report, PDS 2019-36, be received, that Bylaw 34-2018 be repealed, Zoning Bylaw 2140-97 be further amended by replacing the existing site-specific provisions with new site-specific provisions to facilitate the proposed development, that the bylaw to implement the zoning bylaw amendment be forwarded to council for approval, that council directs staff to prepare an amendment to bylaw 60-2019 should the bylaw come into force and effect prior to the applicant obtaining a building permit. This concludes the report.
Okay, can I get a mover for that report now? Because we moved them all. I got Councillor Longo and speaking to the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I voted in favor of this last time. I don't have any intention of changing my mind. But because there were people here that asked some questions, I just want to ask a few maybe redundant questions here. This is going to be a vacant land condominium, is it not?
Through the mayor, that is correct, and the intent is that the application will proceed in the next few meetings with that vacant land of condo application.
Okay, so vacant land condominium means that that street, that road in there will be a private road, and it'll be up to the condominium owners and the developer to maintain it and maintain services inside?
Through the mayor, that is correct.
Okay. Would our new parking enforcement official go down that road to give out parking tickets? Thought I'd throw a little curveball at you there, Jason.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, they would not be private property.
Okay. And if you can, I know I'm putting you on the spot because our planner's gone. What are the technical issues that made this come forward to us again tonight?
Through the mayor, there was discrepancies on two of the provisions that were in the zoning bylaw in terms of the way that staff were interpreting it versus the consulting staff, and it had to do with the lot area of each of the individual units.
So did we, by lot area, do you mean that the coverage of the units is now using more lot coverage or less lot coverage? Is that what you mean by that?
Through the mayor, the development is the exact same that was proposed through the original zoning bylaw. The interpretation of the initial zoning bylaw did not, in staff's opinion, facilitate the development.
Okay, so it was very minor and technical in nature. That's why it had to come back to us?
Through the mayor, it's the exact same development. It just came down to the interpretation and the legal opinion on the interpretation.
Okay. And I guess my final question, because I want it 100% answered, the Part 2 will be conveyed to the city, and we will retain ownership, and it'll become part of our parkland.
Through the mayor, and in hearing the applicant speak regarding that, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no more questions.
What's that?
Just for clarity, when the minutes are published, I'll be moving this report to discussion. Okay.
Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on that? Okay, and then the other concern that they talked about, garbage and all that will be handled separately because it's condominium. Am I correct with that, to the Director of Planning?
Through the mayor, that is correct. They would have a private service.
Yes, just like the lofts do. Go ahead, Councillor Long.
I'll just make a final comment. I think the reason I voted for this last time, and while I'll support it again, because it's a vacant land condominium, this will be similar, I believe, I hope, to the condominium that was built on Sullivan Avenue, where it's condominium-controlled corporation. They make the rules, and the owners want to make sure they live in a nice area. And I believe this could be one of the nicer streets in Thorold because of that fact. It's not being built for students. And the alternative is, if it wasn't a vacant land condo, it could be rows of townhouses with no control.
I agree. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Kenny.
One thing that'll also be done, they'll be plowing their own streets.
Yeah.
Yes, our equipment won't be going in that development.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Now we're going to move to back into regular council and do council committee and board meeting minutes to review for information purposes. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Kenny. The council received and file the minutes of the committees and council local boards as presented.
Oh, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now, can I get before going in camera, I'll read this. In accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is about proposed acquisition of land, potential litigation, identifiable individuals. Now, can I have a motion to move into closed sessions to discuss Fire Chief's verbal report, fire station land, proposed acquisition of land, Chief Administration Officer's verbal report, re-LPAD appeal, City Clerk's verbal report, appointment to Thorold Public Library Board, Mayor's verbal report, Chief Administrative Officer, and to adopt the minutes of October 1st, 2019 in-camera General Committee meeting. Can I have a motion to go in camera? Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.